Yo, what's going on, guys? Today's video is sponsored by nobody. If you're new here, this is really a passion project of mine, a hobby, if you will. I genuinely just love diving into music and sharing it in an accessible and respectful manner, respectful to the artist, respectful to the listener, etc. I've been doing this for I would say about a year now at this point, so here's to many more music reviews. I've got plenty more to come. Today's video, I'll be discussing the latest Odesza album. For those who are not familiar, Odesza is an electronic music duo from Seattle, Washington. Clayton Knight and Harrison Mills came together to form the musical project back in 2012. This was when they released their debut album entitled Summer's Gone. However, they wouldn't hit my radar until the release of their second album in 2014, In Return. To me, their music has always reflected an approachable style to electronica, blending live performances of actual instruments with synths and other electronic elements. Their music is always serene, luscious, and inviting. I would describe their sound as a beautiful fusion of house, trance, and other dance styles from around the world. They return with their fourth studio album, The Last Goodbye, and it feels like an organic expansion of the sounds explored in their previous album, A Moment Apart. It's been about 5 years since its release, and it's clear that they've grown as musicians. The Last Goodbye is a total of 13 tracks, sitting at 50 minutes in length. As always, I'll be offering my thoughts and highlights track by track, of course, starting with the first, here entitled This Version of You. This is a luscious and spacious intro to the album. There's no percussive elements here, and the instrumentation features a gentle blend of synths, strings, and a vocal sample. The vocal sample is short, and the duo has explained that it comes from a recorded therapy session. We can hear the therapist say, "This version of you simply becomes real, and you're right here with this version of you to see things as they really are. This version of you looking at you. You looking back. This version of you welcoming you. This version of you saying, yes, I'd like you to imagine this version of you." This passage is intended to open the listener's mind in order to be receptive and open to the themes and sounds they're about to hear in the project. Track 2 is entitled Wide Awake, featuring Charlie Houston. The instrumental features syncopated piano, smooth house rhythms, soft vocals, and chopped up vocal melodies. I love the buzzing synth stabs that make appearances throughout the track. It's a subtle touch that adds so much to the mix. The drops mainly feature the instrumental accompaniment, and it's a serene soundscape. There's vocals, some vocals at least, sprinkled in the drops, and I like that most of the vocals only appear during the verses and pre-choruses. The vocal melodies are quite catchy, and the vocals feature tight mixing. The mix is already drenched in reverb, so they float throughout the song beautifully. Thematically, it's a simple song as the speaker describes the sensation of being overwhelmed. I like how they describe it on the second verse. "I hate the way it hurts breathing. Thought that I could put these feelings aside, but something in my system is fading, making me feel sober about what's going on in my mind." Track number 3 is entitled Love Letter, featuring The Knox. The instrumental features a beautiful vocal melody, busy and layered drums, and subtle piano accompaniment. The drop sections feature a fluid synth that feels like mercury slipping around on the mix. At the halfway mark of the song, the instrumental returns to the intro verse style, but this time a smooth synth arpeggio joins the mix as well. It's a subtle element of progression which helps guide the listener into the second drop section. The second drop is very similar to the first, and it features stuttered instrumentation to help the listener differentiate it from the first. The strings we hear during the outro are a gorgeous touch, as we can feel all sorts of filters being tweaked as the volume on the master mix gradually fades out. The lyrics are simple on the song as we hear the phrase, "You can't break my heart 'cause I was never in love," and this repeats throughout the song. Towards the end of the drops, we can hear some lyrical variation, "Don't know where without your love." It's left wide open for the listener's interpretation of the meaning of the song. Track number 4 is entitled Behind the Sun. The vocal sample we hear during the intro is wonderful and sets the tone very well. It repeats throughout the song and features Arabic lyrics. The vocal sample is from the song Sib, sung by Simin Ghanem. It was originally produced by the renowned Iranian composer Board's Lakini. The lyrics translate to, I need that blue sky separated. I need that moonlit sky separated. My heart is separated from bad memories. The percussive accompaniment is lively and rich on the song. During the breakdown sections, we can hear a blend of many types of drums, both electronic samples and physical instruments alike. Just imagine a live drum line akin to a marching band mixed with EDM grooves. In the background, we can hear subtle vocal chants, strings, and a pulsing synth accompaniment of chords. I love the sound of the drops as the polyrhythmic approach to the drum section blends beautifully with the layered synths. There's so many different sounds hitting the listener at once, it's like an electronic orchestra. The second drop is more stripped back as the percussion section takes center stage. Eventually, all the synths and strings re-enter the mix. And eventually, all elements of the mix gradually fade out after the second drop, leaving the listener with only a simple synth chord ostinato to listen to. We transition into track number 5, entitled Forgive Me, featuring Izzy Bizou. We've got pop vocals on this song, and the danceable synth pop instrumental matches the energy well. The drum groove is pop at its core, and the instrumental takes cues from various danceable styles of music. For example, the strings and syncopated bass give me a funky energy with a disco flair to it. I enjoy the bass line a lot. It's fun and provides a strong foundation for the general groove of the song. The mix is full of reverb, and we can hear rhythm guitars, chimes, and other fun percussive elements to help keep the listener engaged. Thematically, it is a fun song about asking for a lover's forgiveness after having made some kind of mistake. The pre-chorus sums it up well. I promise you I didn't mean to do you wrong. I just felt like you didn't notice me for long. So I went around and acted like I had somebody new with you on my mind. Track number 6 is entitled North Garden. This is a very warm and peaceful song. In a nutshell, we can hear floating vocal samples on top of this drum-heavy instrumental. I love how the instrumental gives the percussion space to breathe and be. It's a refreshing approach to production in general. The background accompaniment consists of synths and sustained strings and synths alike. It's like floating on clouds. And the bridge section at the halfway mark highlights what I mean, as there's no vocals here. It's just a lot of different sounds. The listener is embraced by the warm blend of lovely synth melodies and string samples. The drums are lively, and I swear it's impossible to sit still while listening to them on the song. The performers did their thing, and my kudos to them. Thematically, the song is a lot like a hug. The phrase, I don't really blame you, repeats throughout the tune, as if easing the listener along with the warm instrumental. Track number 7 is entitled Better Now, featuring Moreau. We're hit with soft vocals and quiet percussive accompaniment at the intro. This builds into the first chorus section. Here we've got the introduction of a beautiful synth that feels like a flute, and I cannot get enough of that timbre. It's so gorgeous. The vocals are overdubbed, and the drums have a larger presence at this point. The drums are subtle and exceptional during the chorus sections, as we can hear a rich blend of overheads, snares, and kicks. The synth accompaniment is soft and subtle, hitting the listener with various timbres, creating a beautiful color palette of sound. In the final third of the song, a piano enters the mix and ushers in a distinct section of the song. Not quite a bridge, but it is different. The vocals are the main sound, keeping the listener's attention here. It's like a calm build-up that eases the listener into eventually the second drop of the song. The melodies are catchy and complement the production style well. Thematically, it's an uplifting song as Moreau sings of not fearing failure. I like the way that she puts it on the chorus. So what if I fall? Better that I tried instead of nothing at all. And I can say it's my fault. I really don't mind. At least I gave it a go. Track number 8 is entitled The Last Goodbye, featuring Betty Lavette. This was the lead single, the first song to be released, to give us a sneak peek at this new era of Odesza's music. This might be my favorite song off of the entire album. It's an upbeat dance tune. The vocal sample at the intro is a gorgeous performance. It's captivating and emotional. Odesza samples a snippet from the song Let Me Down Easy by Betty Lavette. In the background, we can hear synth strings that gradually swell and arpeggios begin to peak through as the vocal performance reaches its most emotional point. I love the way the mix shrinks at this point and the listeners hit with that sleek synth. The LFO on the synth is going crazy here as it stutters and slows down in a very beautiful rhythmic manner. As the listener gets that initial taste of the timbre, the drum groove comes in full force, hitting the listener with the foundation that properly contextualizes the unique rhythms found in the synth here. From here on out, the instrumental gradually transitions into a groovy section where a fat syncopated bass guitar is introduced. Shortly after this awesome funky bridge, we're hit with that ethereal drop one more time. Thematically, the song highlights the experience of going through a breakup on good terms. However, as time passes, it's inevitable that the involved parties will grow apart, and eventually whatever bond remained between them will fade away until it's all nothing more than just a memory. The second verse of the song highlights this well, as we hear, "When you pass by me, say hello once in a while. Does it hurt so much to smile? We promised that we'd still be friends till the very end." Track number 9 is entitled All My Life. The intro slowly brings the strings and phased synth plucks that taste like harps into the mix. It's a gorgeous and mesmerizing foundation for the track as the subtle drums gradually join the song and help everything fit into place. The drums here feature syncopated kicks, shakers, claps, and soft snares. It's definitely a slow burn type of song that rewards the patient listener as this beautiful synth melody eventually enters the mix and adds another subtle layer of complexity to the song. It's a gorgeous song, and at the very end, the listener is left with just warm crackles on the mix, on the song, just reminiscent of a vinyl record being spun on a record player. Odesza has described this song as being an ode to their own parents. The refrain of the song is meant to explore the idea that a parent can only do so much for their child, and it is ultimately the child who decides their own fate and future. As we hear throughout the song, repeated several times, "Watching me all my life, but you can't help." Track number 10 is entitled Equal, featuring Lopsley. This is a sleek pop cut, and I would say a solid B-side track for the album. This trance-like instrumental consists of solid vocals, simple syncopated drum grooves, chopped-up vocal melodies, and a big synth melody during the drop sections. The timbre of that synth is smooth and easy to digest, much like a gulp of water at 3 a.m. when you randomly wake up and you're like parched. The rhythms in the melody are unique and have phased elements to them as well. There's clear syncopation here, but it feels like the timbre is lagging, almost like the attack is turned all the way down. It's really cool, and I think it sounds great. Thematically, the speaker is explaining how they yearn for a requited love, one that makes sense and is simply fair. I like how they put it on the second verse. "I'd give the whole world, let emotions unfurl, and my frustrations be heard, and nothing will ever take me higher again, and we're a wildfire, balanced on the thin line between life and some heaven, keeping it together." Track number 11 is entitled Healing Grid. We're hit with phased flute and string samples at the intro, with the syncopated drums adding a heartbeat of sorts to the music. The vocal melody is gradually introduced, and the mix slowly swells as the listener starts to understand everything that they're kind of hearing and experiencing. There's cool panning effects here as well as different sounds hop between the left and right tracks of the mix. Once the vocals actually enter the mix, the song calms down a lot more and drops a lot of those sounds out so the listener can focus on the lyrics here. The vocals feel pitched down and are super wet. It's like adding creamer to your coffee. Lyrically, it's a beautifully simple song, as we hear the phrase, "It's not about you," repeated throughout the song. After the big vocal section of the mix wraps up, the instrumental brings back those phased flutes and strings from the intro, gradually winding the energy down until the abrupt stop at the very end. I'd say a very mesmerizing and calm cut for the album. Track number 12 is entitled I Cant Sleep. I love the swung energy on the song. It's not very rigid, it's more loose and it feels more alive. The entire background instrumentation, as a matter of fact, feels alive. And I would say it barely obeys the steady drum groove that anchors the whole song down. The instrumental consists of chopped vocal melodies, synths, strings, and evokes an ethereal energy as everything feels like it's moving in unison. The subtle bass line is fat, like a large moog is hiding underneath the surface of clear waters. The mix is quite hypnotic in its motion as well. The drums fade away during the outro, leaving the listener with only the plucked ostinatos and soft miscellaneous samples playing. Lyrically, there isn't much to talk about here, as the words "I can't sleep" can be heard repeated over and over throughout the song. And finally, we transition into the closing track 13, entitled Light of Day, featuring Olafur Arnalds. This is a warm and soft tune. The intro features gentle piano chords, which are paired with Arnold's soft vocals. The mix is wide, as his vocals are drenched in reverb, and so is the mix, honestly. And I also enjoy how bright and warm his vocals are. They make me feel like I'm in a cottage on a mountain, watching the sunrise while I'm tripping on acid or something like that. The drums are gradually introduced and lead the listener into the subdued drop section. It's a beautiful and simple section, as really just synths and strings carry the listener through it. It's not too melodic, mainly featuring syncopated ostinatos holding down single notes, so it's got a lot of phased energy here. It's very cool. The drums here act as a strong anchor for the music, following a slow trance-style groove. After the main drop, we have a transitional section that introduces a nice arpeggiated synth melody. A nice touch for progression. Is very subtle. The first half of the song quiets down and leaves the listener with the floating bridge. It does mirror the intro, but this time there's more strings. There's like tremolo strings being performed, and phase synths, which carry the listener into the following drop. This section is the brightest point on the song, with every instrument coming together, harmoniously firing on all cylinders. It gets a lot louder as well. The drop settles eventually as the mix winds down, and the listener is left to fully appreciate that luscious string section. And just when you thought it was over, after the strings have faded away, the listener can hear a fuzzy sample of a parent and child saying goodbye together. Thematically, it's a very beautiful song, as there's really only 2 lines of lyrics here for the whole song. Arnold repeats on the refrain, "If I reach the light of day now, if I reach the light, I'm okay." It feels like a breathing exercise for the listener, as we can all take a moment to digest the idea that the possibility that maybe in the end everything will be all right. Overall, I would say this was a gorgeous album, definitely on par with my expectations for Odesza, as they've always consistently produced mesmerizing and luscious electronica. I noticed that they didn't shy away from exploring higher tempos here, which makes for a more danceable body of music, which I know will work very well and does work very well for live performances. A lot of their music in the past has been a little bit more slow, a little bit more calm, but this is more lively, so it's a nice change of pace. While the track list is not so long, the experience is long, and yet it feels brief. It's really curious. The album is just paced well, as some songs feel like they're over before you know it. Odesza includes some pop cuts that are simpler and radio-friendly, while some songs here lean heavily into their more abstract and wonderful style that just, quite frankly, is hard to put into words, though I've done my best to describe that in this review. I'm sad that I likely won't be able to catch them on tour for this album. They're currently touring. But one day I will get to see Odesza live. I have yet to see them in concert. But until then, this album will remain on repeat. If you're interested in exploring the softer side of electronic music, this is definitely a safe option for you to dive into. This album is a strong addition to their solid discography. And with that being said, definitely might want to visit some of their older albums as well if you find yourself enjoying this a lot. And with all that being said, if you've sat here and you've listened to me talk about Odesza and their album The Last Goodbye, I genuinely do appreciate you taking the time to do that. I always love enjoy making these videos just because I love to talk about music so much. So if you've got new music you're listening to and you're really excited about, you can always send that my way. And if you'd like my feedback on that music, just let me know and I'll be happy to provide that. And I hope that you're having a very wonderful day. And again, thank you. Peace.